This is Lysha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast, brought to you by Hoxo Media. And I am beyond excited to have our next guest on the show this week. And this is a familiar face to those who also follow Hoxo, who are possibly on LinkedIn for more than a few minutes a day. This will be a face and voice that I'm hoping you'll be very familiar with. But for those who are not yet, this is Joel Laglee. How are you?
Lysha, I'm doing great. It is an honor to be on the show, and I'm super excited. I can't believe this is the first time we've actually had a conversation and met like this. So it kind of blows me away.
I feel like I know you because of your presence on social media, which is clearly why I've invited you onto the channel today. But, you know, we're connected. We're both from Lancashire, believe it or not, guys.
Let's go, Blackpool.
Let's go, Blackpool. We're going to tag all the Blackpool people on here. So for those who have been living under a rock for the last 2 years or so, explain who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So I'm based in North America, as you can tell by my accent, which I think Americans, they still think I sound English, but I was from England originally, moved over to the US in my teenage years, and I've been in the recruitment space for, it's coming up to 6 years. Okay. Primarily worked at a really cool startup in the US, watched them just explode. I think we went from 6 people to 80 people in 5 years. Wow. And since the pandemic, they've doubled in size, and they're looking to double again over the next 3 months. So just grew up in a really, really cool recruitment environment, really innovative. And about 2 years ago, I just started to see a trend on LinkedIn of people building audiences. And I got really interested in that. And I found out that, wow, I really enjoy writing. I really enjoy creativity. So now I've kind of crossed over from recruitment and running a full desk and, meeting clients and filling roles to marketing and helping recruiters with skills that I think aren't just for LinkedIn. LinkedIn's primarily where those skills are used right now, but I just think the skill set of getting attention, building community, and understanding how to be a presence in the space that you're in is just going to be a skill set that's going to be more and more valuable in the future. So that's what I'm doing. I'm helping recruiters understand how to do that, and working with Hoxo to do that as well, and launch them in the US, which is super exciting.
Very exciting. And I can see why you're the man to do that job. And you also have your own podcast as well. You're a fellow broadcaster.
I am, yeah. So I would consider mine more of like a live show than a podcast, but now we've recently started repurposing it into a podcast. We just got really cool sponsor, Volcanic, and yeah, it's basically just, again, from my time in the recruitment space, I started to see people were doing podcasts, and I thought, what, I'd love to do that. I love conversations. I love to meet people, and I've had the honor. Like the first guest I had was a guy called Lou Adler, who is really big in the States. I think he's got over 1 million followers on LinkedIn. And that was my first guest, which really helped leverage a lot of other guests on the show. So I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of big names, and I love it. And I find that when you connect with people who are just better than you and just have more experience, you learn. And I think that's been the best part, is like, I just get to learn, and I get to see that some of the most successful people are really down to earth and really humble, and they're always willing to give value as well. So it's been a really cool experience.
That's the sign of a true leader, isn't it? That they're prepared to share their experience, because ultimately,
sometimes I'm sweating and nervous, and then they're just like, so like, kind of like, there's still an authority, and you can tell when somebody's really accomplished, but they're not arrogant with it and cocky. And I think that, yeah, like you said, that is a sign of a true leader. I love it.
It is. And I think that, the world's changed, hasn't it? And I think whether you're leading a team of, 1,000 people, or whether you're a one person, sole trader, you've still got something to A, you've got something to share, but B, you've got something to learn. So I think humility is a very underplayed trait in the world, to be honest with you. So it's lovely to know that you're sharing stories too. And that's the purpose of the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. It's to share best practice, why would we sit and hold on to the best advice out there? Let's make each other better, because that way we elevate the sector and we elevate each other as human beings, don't we? So you are, without a shadow of a doubt, the king of LinkedIn, and I don't doubt anybody would disagree with me on that. So how did you go about doing that? I mean, you talk about that you were aware about a couple of years ago of it becoming more audience focused. So how have you actually done it?
Yeah, I think initially when I started, I just throw myself into things. Some are and I think all of us in recruitment are like that. Like, it's really easy to just be really goal driven and try and figure things out, solve problems. And so I think early on in my journey, I just spent hours and hours and hours consuming other people's content and engaging with other people's content. So probably for about 6 months, and this might be maybe not encouraging for people to hear, but it's the truth. But I would spend 4 or 5 hours engaging with other people's content and just consuming it. So I'd look at the content that did well, and I'd read it, I'd respond to it, I'd leave lots and lots of comments. I also started networking locally with other people who were pretty big on the platform. So Milwaukee, which is where I live in the States, there's a lot of really big LinkedIn influencers, for lack of a better word. So like people like Shay Rowbottom, there's a guy, Quinton Allams, who was really big on LinkedIn video in the States. They were based in Milwaukee. So I just started going to like local events. And I think understanding that, that community on LinkedIn is really big, and just on social media in general. So if you look at TikTok, Instagram, whatever platform, what you'll typically find is that big influencers kind of group together and they support each other, sometimes artificially. But I just threw myself into it and just learning things about the algorithm and learning what works, testing a lot. I think last year I posted 1,000 times, which is about 3 to 4 times a day. And just really testing like what works, what doesn't. And just, I would see somebody's post that would say, don't do this. And I'd go, okay, let's do it and actually see what happens. Exactly. And made a lot of mistakes, and we can get into those. But one of the things that I'm passionate about now is, you don't have to spend 3-6 months trying to like figure out this stuff anymore. I want to be that, that person that kind of helps guide people through that. And depends on what your goals are, right? To be successful on LinkedIn. And a lot of us will look at the likes, the comments, all this sort of stuff. But I'm always interested, like, let's get into the DMs. Let's take a look at how you're actually converting those relationships, or how you're converting those things offline. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
And I wonder whether or not that LinkedIn will follow the Instagram, where you can actually dysfunction the like, and the fact that it's not then about that, it's about how many people are actually viewing. Because for me, it's about views. How many people have viewed one of my posts is probably more important to me. And it's very telling that if I share an actual job advert, which we do as a Canva, it's all very visual, I might only get 1 or 2 likes, because the reality is my target market is not going to like a job advert, because obviously their boss will see.
Exactly.
But I will get a hit rate of maybe 1 or 2 people that are my target audience that will then DM me. And to me, that's more important 100%. Than maybe the 400 or 500 likes on a picture of, me out with my team, or me with my now deceased, sadly, dog, and those are great. They're great for building your brand, about showing who I am, the sort of the personal content piece. But actually, I do think it's about what value it brings. So I think that's really interesting. And I think, there will be leaders probably sat there a little bit nervous or a bit uncomfortable, thinking, I'm not going to encourage my team to go and sit there for 4 or 5 hours a day. Well, you don't need to. That's the whole point of the Hoxo Academy. Exactly. The Hoxo Academy is plagiarizing what you and Sean learned over that period of time, where you did it over a period of years, and you can then break that down into component factors, where ultimately you're making it an off-the-shelf thing. So I think, nobody ever achieves a level of success without a lot of bloody hard graft, and you clearly did that.
Yeah, and I would look at it almost like, just like I would in recruitment. You would never tell somebody starting in recruitment to just go do it and figure it out. I mean, there is an element to that, I guess, in terms of figuring out how to converse with people, and your sales pitch, and everyone's slightly different. But most recruitment agencies that want to grow and want to scale are going to say, hey, this is a process that's proven, this is what works. And you bring someone new into the industry, you teach them the basics of foundations. And, you know, really, if you want to be effective with your time, you've got to allocate times to do things. You got to have a strategy around it. And I think, you know, for us, we want to get people to a point where 30 minutes a day, you're able to do the right activities that are going to propel you forward. Now, is this, you know, is it 30 minutes a day is going to solve your sales issues or your, you know, fill roles magically? No. But the 30 minutes a day over time is going to compound, and that's where you start to see the results. And I think that's what it is for me. It's like you said, you don't want to be doing 4 or 5 hours. I only did that because I had no idea what I was doing, and there was no one there to show me. But 30 minutes of real clear strategy can go a long way, and that's our goal. And so I think that hopefully gives a little bit of peace of mind to anybody who's listening, who's like, yeah, I don't want my people on there all day. We don't either. We want you to spend that 30 minutes, get the great results. And then we have great stories so we can sell more. So that's our goal for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the compound effect, isn't it? You know, you could go and run a marathon for 6-7 hours, or you could have a personal trainer come in and say, right, in 30 minutes, you could do a HIIT where you're going to burn as many calories. You're going to have as much benefit cardiovascularly to doing a marathon, but you can do it in 30 minutes rather than 6 hours. Well, you're going to listen to the personal trainer, and you're effectively that for personal branding and understanding what to actually do. I mean, I'm absolutely testament to that. I was doing all the right things. I was on LinkedIn, but I had absolutely no strategy to what I was doing. So I would sometimes spend a whole day scrolling, not, you know, sharing a bit of stuff, connecting with people, not really thinking about what I was doing. And what it does, what the academy does, is it makes you mindful of what you're doing, but it also gives you those, you know, those components that anyone can do. But it's just having that objectivity and that expertise. So I mean, the testimony always speaks for itself. But that's why I'm a very proud ambassador to Hoxo. So we've talked about LinkedIn, and I think you mentioned the dreaded word, the algorithm, which they're always tricking us. They're always tricking us. And even as we record it now, they're probably doing something else that's going to wipe something else. So if you were the master of LinkedIn, which we know you're the king of LinkedIn, but if you were the master and you were in charge of it, what would you make it capable of?
Yes, I mean, it's such a great question. Like, I know that ultimately the goal of LinkedIn is to keep people on the platform. That's the goal. I'm not a huge fan of what they're doing right now, which is they're making things last longer on the platform. So, you know, one of the things that you might have heard a couple of years ago was like the magic hour with posts, where if you had to get all the activity in the first hour. And what that led people to do is led them to basically get into groups, organized groups, where they would DM whatever that post is. Yeah, an engagement group or a pod. But the other thing that it encouraged people to do then was, like, if the post wasn't doing well, then, hey, I'm going to just DM it to just random people and try and get engagement for them. Or I'll tag people, because if I tag people, they'll get awareness. And although I like the concept of good content lasting longer, I just think that they've kind of gone extreme with it. The other thing that I think that they could do a better job of would be kind of saving like your favorite creators. So just having like a section, and you can do this on Sales Navigator to a certain point, but just having like a list of like truly top people that you follow. I think having like different alerts. So potentially having like a bell for like, hey, alert me every time this person posts. Alert me like sometimes when this person posts, or alert me once in a while. I think all of those things would help. And to be honest, like the biggest feature that I think they're missing out on, or the one that's really a pain, is the DM feature. I think the DM is just terrible, and DMs get lost. It'd be great if they could sort them more. Because as you can imagine, you know, I get tons and tons of DMs, and it's really, really hard to manage. And I'm not just managing DMs. You know, I'm managing HubSpot, I'm managing my email, just like all of us. And so to have DMs be the way it is, where it's just so one-dimensional, and there's no way to archive a group or make like that more important.
Like if you get like, say, 20 in a day or something, and you're doing everything else and juggling everything, and then you think, oh my god, sometimes I just think, right, I'm just going to go back through all my DMs just to see. In the there'll be one in there. You think, I didn't even see that message.
And even like with follow up on people with sales, it's so hard to do. Like it's like, how do you do that if you're like, I go through and it's like I sent a guy, one message, or I sent him a voice note, and I got to follow up, and it's like I have to scroll.
Going back through, it's terrible. It's better on your phone, but I think I agree with you totally. And with regards to what you just said there, I mean, on Facebook, you can favorite somebody so their posts come up first as a preference. So why can't LinkedIn do that?
Yeah, I think they try. I mean, I think that is what like the algorithm is supposed to do, right? So one of my arguments for posting a lot is, number one, everybody doesn't see your post in a day. So I've got 50,000 followers. I don't get 50,000 views every time I post. And so I know that they test it with a portion of my followers. And then if they like it, what happens is one of my other posts will show up later on as they keep scrolling. Because I've noticed if I like someone's post, they show up more as I'm scrolling.
Yeah.
So the algorithm tries to do that. But it's like, if I want to see somebody's posts, really like the only solution people have come up with is have like favorites on your bookmark their pages and go to them manually. And I just think that sucks. So yeah,
I agree with you totally. Well, who knows what they've got in store for us, but I think
last thing I think they could do is I think they could have a better discover page too. So like on Instagram, like when you hit the magnifying glass and it shows you content from people you don't know but it's related to your hashtags. TikTok has the For You page. LinkedIn is too based on like your connections and what they like. And so if you go and like something, just because we're connected doesn't mean I like everything that you like. So it doesn't really make any sense. I want a discover page for like hashtag recruitment or hashtag.
It's on Spotify based on your playlist. So why can't you do it on LinkedIn? Totally true.
Sorry, I'm getting too. The product managers are going to listen to this and they're going to be pissed off about it.
They're going to be like, just delete what you're saying. So we want to create kings and queens of content. That's the aim of Hoxo. That's the aim of what you do. It's the aim of, I guess, is what I do as well. So what would be your sort of 3 top must-dos and what are your 3 must-not-dos?
Yeah, great. I think the top one for me is, like you said, it's switching the mindset of LinkedIn activity. You got to switch it to, this is business development.
Yep.
Because if you don't, then it's not going to be a priority. Which leads to the second point. You got to be consistent. Okay. And I just, again, look at it, recruitment. You never just tell somebody in their first week of recruitment, if they haven't, if they've done cold calling, you would never tell them to just give up after a week. You wouldn't tell them to give up after a month. You just say, hey, you got to push through. Trust the process.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's the same way. So, be consistent as well. And then number 3, I think you just got to engage with other people and build that community as well. And so, seek out people who are on a similar mission to you, even if they're a slight competitor. That's okay. You can't work with everybody. And in recruitment, if you work with everybody, it doesn't even make any sense who you're going to pull from. So, and in reality, in recruitment, you don't need that many clients. You need good clients, and but you don't want 1,000 clients as one person.
Talent pools.
Yeah. So just build that community, engage with others. As far as mistakes go, to me, the biggest mistake is like just checking the box for social media. I think this is on every platform. You are just going to waste your money and you're going to throw it away if you just get somebody that's just going to post like mindless images that you're not connected to. You have to be involved. So if you are going to hire somebody, you need to be involved in that process, and you can't get away from it. It'd literally be like hiring somebody. It'd be like outsourcing every part of recruitment. It wouldn't make sense. Like, you have to show up with those clients. You have to show up with those candidates. They're connecting with you. It's the same thing on LinkedIn. I think number 2, big mistake people make is they're literally just sharing links off the page. I think we've heard that one, but it's like sharing on LinkedIn doesn't do any good. Like, again, if you're sharing a company update, if you're sharing an article, nothing wrong with sharing, but you've got to share your opinion. And that's what I would say. So if you're going to share someone else's article, you've got to share your opinion with it. And then number 3, I think this is kind of goes back to the consistency part. I think number 3, it's like, just don't give up and think it's a waste of time after 2 weeks. And I think I get it. As recruiters, we are trained to think of just short-term metrics. Like, we track daily activity. It goes backwards, like quarter, month, week, day. I think with a brand, like, you can't view it like that. You have to see it more from, like you said before, the compound effect, where you don't take your money out of an investment after 2 weeks because it went up and down a couple of times. You keep it in there for the long term, and you've got to shift your mindset to that. If you don't, I'm going to be looking at it and going, hey, I'm getting millions and millions of views and everybody knows who I am. And in 10 years, you'd be like, oh man, I need to start this now, instead of just bite-sized chunks over time, and not getting hard on yourself about it either. No,
I agree totally. And you know, I think that, you know, the world has changed, and I think everything that you've said there actually ties back in with something you said at the start. This isn't a strategy just for LinkedIn. You know, recruitment is no longer just a business development role. We have to be marketeers, we have to be consultative, we have to be thought leaders. All of these things, if you follow everything that Joel is saying, you will elevate yourself amongst your competition. And whilst you can use your competition to collaborate, I'm a huge advocate of that. You know, I share a lot of competitors' stuff because it's about building up the sector. You're creating a voice, and you become known. And it's not just about sharing stuff for the sake of having noise out there, because I think that would be my biggest avoid. Don't share stuff just for the sake of it. I think there needs to be a reason for you sharing it. I think otherwise people start to think, actually, you're quite disingenuous. You've got to be very authentic in what you're sharing, in my opinion.
No, I look, the biggest test for me is, and I notice this, like, when I start to meet people offline, is like, the worst is when someone's like, yeah, I'm all about people. And then you meet them and they like don't even want to talk to you, or they don't have the time, or they're like, yeah, I'm all about giving back. And obviously that within reason, like, I think of someone like Leah Turner pops up in my mind, where she gets so many DMs and so many people like asking for free stuff. And I mean, she just posted about it today, where she's like, hey, I'm not just going to give free advice because that'd be disrespectful to my paying clients. So there's a balance there. And I'm dealing with that all the time, because I have a tendency to just give. But what's happened is then people will just meet with me and kind of just like taking. So there's a balance with all of it. But I think, like you said, it's that authenticity. And when you meet someone, and the worst thing I say is, like, if you're posting something and then people meet you and they're like, yeah, you're way different than what you are online, that you need to adjust, you know, and that's okay. But the most powerful brands are going to be the ones that people, like, when they meet you offline, or you at like an industry event, and they're like, oh, wow, like, you're the same person.
I am the same person, but people always say I'm far smaller than they think I'm going to be. I think people think because I'm quite loud and I'm always out there, they think I'm really tall, but I'm actually only 5'3". So I think
that's cool.
I agree with you 100%, because that's where, for me, this sort of the way that social media has put the spotlight on people. You know, you can't mimic. You can learn from other people. You can watch what other people do and think, God, they do a great job there, that I'm going to try and see if I can do it. But if you are not authentic to yourself, your brand, your core values, whatever your desk is, whatever your job is, actually, you will get found out eventually by the offline stuff. And I think that's such an important point to make, that this isn't about just creating replicas and, you know, clones across the platform, because actually that's really boring, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, again, it's like we talked about it before, but everyone has different goals, and I think right now, like, personal branding is really, you know, it's a big deal. But like, for recruiters specifically, you don't need to go, like, I have to go wide to a certain degree, because I'm meeting with people and showing them that I know the platform. So it's kind of my job is LinkedIn. But if you're hiring process engineers, or you a plant manager at a manufacturing facility, or a software engineer, so a really small niche. Like views do matter to a certain extent, and engagement matters to a certain extent, but not as much, because a lot of those people aren't going to engage. I don't know too many process engineers that are like, I got to check my LinkedIn. But over time, which is why you got to be a little bit patient with it, because they're not as active on the platform. Over time, you start to learn more about what's valuable to that audience. You start to build that audience. And, I think my goal for any recruiter is this: like, you want to be known in your niche. Like, you want to be known in your sector. Now, I've niched down. Like, that's why I focus on recruitment. I'm not trying to be like the LinkedIn guy to help all organizations. I want to just be recruitment. Mm-hmm. And I think, so that's where I think you do have to be careful, like worrying about those types of things. And, like you said, like a lot of the people that you go after in your space, they're not going to be that active on the platform. No. But I promise you, if you've got 3,000 people you're connected to, and they're all within your target market, over 3 months, 6 months to a year, they'll all get a feel for who you are. And then as you start to cold call them, as you start to reach out to them,
they'll know who you are.
Yeah, they're like, I've seen your stuff around. Oh yeah, I've seen that. And to me, like, that maybe that's underwhelming to people. Maybe people are thinking that people are just going to reach out to you, go, I really want to work with you. But given how competitive recruitment is, even if you got a client you work with for 10 years, ask them how many times people are trying to reach out and get that business. Yeah, it's extremely competitive. So any edge you can have, it's powerful. So
it does. It's all very powerful stuff, and we both definitely encourage people to get the edge. So we'll ensure, obviously, that the Hoxo links, given that they sponsor the podcast, we will make sure they're on there prominently. And we know that you host a lot of the academies that I'm recommending people to go and do. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for basically supporting recruiters across the globe in making sure that they've got the best brand possible. Because ultimately, this is how we live now. We're in a digital world, and, the days of where it doesn't matter, I'm afraid are behind you. And if you're listening to this thinking, I really, really need to do something to make sure I've got that brand, then drop myself or Joel a message, and we'll get you hooked up to the academy. But thank you so much. And I know you're at the start of your day. I'm at the end of my day.
Yes.
It's been
so great to be here.
Great.
Yeah, I've loved it. I think the mission is awesome. I love that you're so passionate about the industry and helping people out. And thank you for letting me share and connecting with me. Yeah, I had a great time.
And it's, Blackpool's loss is Milwaukee's game. That's all I can say. And if you ever make it here, we're going to go on the big one and have a nice piece of rock. And for anyone that's listening on your side of the water, you're thinking, what has she just said? But trust me, Google it. It's this horrendous roller coaster ride, isn't it? As you look out over the...
I used to live in South Shore, which is like where the Pleasure Beach is. And there's like a red ramp that you go over the train tracks, which are right by it. And I literally was like, I could walk to the Pleasure Beach from my house. So we used to hear at night, we just hear, ah! And it was every time the big one had to drop, we could hear it. And that was our summer. So
lucky you, or I don't know, maybe not so much living next to screens every day. Well, it's been an absolute joy and pleasure, as I knew it would be. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Lysha.